Kira Bell stared at her communication screen as another rejection message appeared. This made 15 this week alone. She sighed and closed the message, then looked out the small window of her apartment at the busy space station outside. Titito, vast structure of Nexus Station hung in orbit around Jupiter, its many levels and sectors glowing with artificial light. From her window in the human quarter, Kira could see alien ships coming and going from the upper docking bays. Those areas were reserved for the wealthy and important. The lower levels, where humans mostly lived, received far less maintenance and attention. Kira's apartment was tiny but clean. She kept her few possessions organized in the limited space. A small plant from Earth sat on her desk next to her communication terminal. It was the only living thing besides herself in the room, and sometimes she talked to it when loneliness became too much. "Well, little plant," she said. "Looks like nobody wants a human xenolinguist today either." At 32 years old, Kira had spent the last decade learning everything she could about alien languages and cultures. She spoke 3 dialects of Central Galactic perfectly. She understood the complex, clicking speech of the Latari. She had even mastered the difficult pauses and tones of Meridian trade language, yet no alien employer would hire her. The rejection messages always said similar things. Not compatible with our work environment, or human emotional patterns unsuitable for this position, or sometimes just species mismatch. What they really meant was too human. Kira checked her bank account and felt a knot form in her stomach. 2 more months. That was all she had before her savings would run out. Then she would need to either find work serving food or cleaning in the human quarter, or worse, admit defeat and return to Earth. The thought of going back to her small hometown in Minnesota filled her with dread. Everyone had told her she was reaching too high, dreaming too big. Aliens don't want humans in important jobs, her high school teacher had warned. They just want us for manual labor they don't want to do. But Kira had been stubborn. She had worked 3 jobs to pay for her education. She had studied harder than anyone else in her xenolinguistics program. She had earned top marks and recommendations from her human professors. None of it seemed to matter to alien employers. Humans had joined the Galactic Confederation nearly 200 years ago, but they remained outsiders. Alien species found humans unpredictable, too emotional, and difficult to understand. Human creativity and intuition made logical aliens uncomfortable. Human passion and drive made cautious aliens nervous. Kira got up and made herself a cup of synthetic coffee. The machine hummed and produced a dark liquid that tasted almost like the real thing. Almost, but not quite. Like everything in space, it was a copy of Earth things, never quite the same. Her communication terminal chimed with a new message. Kira nearly ignored it, expecting another rejection, but habit made her check anyway. The message header wasn't the usual automated response. It read, "Interview request, communications specialist, solar nomad." Kira opened it quickly, heart suddenly beating faster. "Dear Ms. Bell, your qualifications have been reviewed and found suitable for the position of communications specialist aboard the independent trading vessel Solar Nomad. Captain Paul Foster requests an interview at your earliest convenience. Please respond with your availability. Compensation details and job description attached." Kira blinked at the screen. She opened the attachment and saw a salary offer that was modest but fair. The job description matched her skills perfectly: facilitating trade negotiations, translating, communications, and helping build relationships with alien merchants. But what caught her attention was that the Solar Nomad was a human ship with a human captain. That explained why they would consider her. Still, after so many rejections, she felt suspicious. Maybe this was some kind of scam. Independent human traders didn't have the best reputation in some parts of the galaxy. She searched for information about the Solar Nomad and Captain Paul Foster. The ship appeared legitimate, with proper registration and trading licenses. It was small compared to the massive alien trading corporations, but its record showed successful runs through several major trading hubs. Captain Foster had fewer personal details available. Human records weren't as thoroughly maintained in the galactic databases. He had been operating the Solar Nomad for about 8 years, with no major incidents or complaints filed against him. Kira hesitated only briefly before sending a reply. Available for interview at your convenience, can meet any time in the next 3 days. The response came back almost immediately, as if the captain had been waiting. Tomorrow, 1400 station time at Earthside Cafe near Docking Bay 37. Look forward to meeting you. Paul Foster. Kira knew the cafe. It was one of the few places on the station that served actual Earth food, though most of it was synthesized. It was popular with human workers and the occasional alien who wanted to experience exotic human cuisine. That night, Kira barely slept. She prepared and reviewed her qualifications. She practiced explaining her skills without sounding desperate. She chose her best outfit, professional but not trying too hard. The next day, she arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early. She ordered a coffee and selected a table with a good view of the entrance. As she waited, she watched the mix of humans and aliens passing by outside. The humans always seemed to move faster, with more energy and purpose. The aliens moved with measured precision, each species following its own rhythm. At exactly 1400, a man entered the cafe. He scanned the room briefly before his eyes settled on Kira. He smiled and walked toward her table. Captain Paul Foster was not what Kira had expected. He wasn't the rough, hardened trader she had imagined. He appeared to be in his early 40s, with short brown hair that was starting to gray at the temples. His face showed smile lines around his eyes, and he walked with an easy confidence. "Ms. Bell?" he asked, extending his hand in the human greeting custom. "I'm Paul Foster. Thank you for meeting me." Kira stood and shook his hand. "Thank you for considering my application." As they sat down, she couldn't help wondering why this human captain might offer her the chance that 100 alien employers had denied. Captain Paul Foster ordered a real coffee, not synthetic, and a plate of pastries for them to share. This small act surprised Kira. Real Earth products were expensive on Nexus Station. Most job interviews with aliens involved no food or drink at all. Aliens considered eating in professional settings improper. "Your resume is impressive," Paul said, looking at a small data tablet. 3 dialects of Central Galactic, plus Latari clicking speech and Meridian trade language. That's rare even among professional translators. Kira nodded, trying not to seem too eager. "I spent extra time learning the cultural contexts, not just the words. Meanings change based on who is speaking to whom, especially with the Latari." Paul smiled. "Exactly what I need. Someone who understands both the words and what's behind them." He took a sip of his coffee. "So tell me, with these qualifications, why aren't you working for one of the big alien trading companies?" Kira hesitated. Should she be honest? Most humans learn to hide their frustrations about alien prejudice. Complaining about it usually made things worse. But something about Paul's direct manner made her decide to tell the truth. "They won't hire humans for communication roles," she said. "They say we're too unpredictable, too emotional. They don't trust us to stay calm during important negotiations." Paul nodded slowly. "And what do you think about that?" "It's unfair," Kira said, then caught herself. "I mean, I understand their concerns from their perspective. Aliens value consistency and logical processes. Humans don't always follow predictable patterns. And that's exactly why I want to hire you," Paul said. Kira blinked in surprise. "Because I'm unpredictable?" "Because you're human," Paul replied. "And you understand both worlds. Look, the Solar Nomad isn't a big corporate vessel. We're small, independent. We trade in places the big companies don't bother with. We deal with all kinds of aliens, many who have never met humans before." He leaned forward. "The big alien companies follow strict protocols. They make the same offers to everyone. They don't adapt. We do. That's our advantage." Kira began to understand. "You need someone who can speak their languages but think like a human." "Exactly." Paul smiled again. "The Solar Nomad has a crew of 5, including me. We're all human. Linda Ortiz is our engineer. Best I've ever seen. Sam Jackson handles navigation. Zoe Williams manages security and cargo. And now I hope you'll handle communications and help with trade negotiations." Kira felt a flutter of excitement but tried to remain professional. "What exactly would my duties involve?" "You'd be our voice when dealing with alien traders. You'd help us understand their cultures and customs so we don't make mistakes. You'd translate during negotiations and help us spot opportunities that others miss." Paul paused. "It's not always easy. We traveled to remote places. Accommodations are basic. But you'd be using your skills every day, not just sitting in some alien office following their protocols." The offer sounded almost too good to be true. After months of rejection, suddenly a job that perfectly matched her abilities had appeared. Kira couldn't help feeling suspicious. "Why me?" she asked directly. "There must be other human linguists looking for work." Paul nodded. "There are, but your file shows something special. You didn't just study languages in school. You spent time in the alien sectors of the station. You volunteered as a guide for new alien visitors. You sought out experiences others avoided." He tapped her resume. "That tells me you're not just good with languages. You're genuinely interested in understanding others." Kira hadn't expected him to notice those details. Most alien employers ignored her volunteer work entirely. "When can I see the ship?" she asked. "Right now, if you'd like," Paul replied. "We're docked for 2 more days before heading to the Vega outpost. If you decide to join us, you'll need to be ready by then." 2 hours later, Kira stood in the main corridor of the Solar Nomad, trying not to show her surprise. From the outside, the ship had looked like many other human vessels, functional but unremarkable. Inside was different. The ship had been extensively modified. Sections of the walls could change color and texture. The lighting systems were more advanced than standard human designs. Even the air felt different, with subtle changes as they moved, from one section to another. "Most of these modifications are Linda's work," Paul explained as they walked. "She can adjust gravity, atmosphere, even the sound absorption in different sections of the ship." "But why?" Kira asked. Paul stopped at a viewport looking into the cargo bay. "Because that's how we trade successfully. When a Latari merchant comes aboard, we can make this section feel more like their homeworld. The gravity, the light spectrum, even slight changes in air composition. It puts them at ease." Kira was amazed. "I've never heard of humans doing this." "Most don't bother," Paul said. "They expect aliens to adapt to us when they're on our ships. We do the opposite." He continued the tour, showing her the small but comfortable crew quarters, the compact bridge, and finally the communication center that would be her main workspace. The communication room was filled with equipment that blended human and alien technology. Translation matrices, cultural reference databases, and communication tools from various species were integrated into a single system. "This would be your domain," Paul said. "You can modify it however works best for you." As they returned to the ship's small common area, the rest of the crew had gathered. Linda Ortiz was a short woman with quick movements and intelligent eyes. Sam Jackson was tall and lean with a quiet, watchful manner. Zoe Williams had the solid build of someone who took security seriously. They greeted Kira warmly, asking questions about her experience and telling stories about their travels. For the first time in months, Kira felt truly comfortable. These humans didn't hide their emotions or try to act like aliens. They were proudly human while still respecting alien cultures. At the end of the tour, back at the airlock, Paul asked, "So what do you think? Would you like to join our crew?" Kira looked back at the ship. It wasn't prestigious like an alien trading corporation. It wouldn't impress her former classmates who had told her she was aiming too high. But it felt right in a way nothing had for a long time. "Yes," she said. "I'd like that very much." Paul smiled. "Welcome aboard the Solar Nomad Communications Specialist Bell. We leave for the Vega outpost in 2 days. Pack light. There's not much room for personal items." As Kira left the docking bay, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. For the EN, first time since arriving on Nexus Station, she wasn't trying to become something she wasn't. Finally, someone valued her for being human. 2 days later, Kira moved her few belongings onto the Solar Nomad. Her new quarters were small but comfortable, with just enough space for her clothes, personal items, and her little plant from Earth. The room had its own tiny washing space and a fold-down desk that doubled as a table. Linda Ortiz helped Kira settle in, showing her how to use the ship's systems. The walls can change color if you prefer something different, Linda explained, tapping a control panel. Most of us keep pictures from home displayed, but you can choose whatever you like. Kira placed her hand on the panel and the wall shifted to display a view of lakes and forests from her Minnesota hometown. Perfect, she said, feeling a small touch of home in her new space. The departure from Nexus Station was smooth. Sam Jackson guided the ship expertly out of the docking bay and into open space. From the bridge viewing window, Kira watched the massive station shrink behind them. She felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. This was her first time leaving the Jupiter orbit since arriving years ago. First time on a long-haul trade run? Paul asked, noticing her expression. Kira nodded. I've only made short trips before, never beyond our solar system. You'll get used to it, Paul said. We'll be at the Vega outpost in 5 days. That gives you time to study our trading partners and prepare for the negotiations. Kira spent those 5 days learning everything she could about the Latari traders they would meet at Vega. The Latari were insectoid aliens with complex social structures based on scent and sound. Their language combined clicking sounds with subtle pheromone signals that humans couldn't detect. This made them especially difficult trading partners for most humans. The crew settled into a comfortable routine. They ate meals together in the small common area, sharing stories and teaching Kira about life aboard the ship. She learned that Linda had been with Paul from the beginning, helping design the ship's special modifications. Sam had joined 3 years ago after leaving a corporate transport job. Zoe was the newest before Kira, a former station security officer who wanted to see more of the galaxy. On the 4th day, Paul called Kira to his small office. Tomorrow we'll arrive at Vega, he said. I want to go over our strategy for the Latari negotiations. Kira nodded, ready to demonstrate her knowledge. The Latari value precision in language. They prefer direct statements with clear numbers and terms. That's what the textbooks say, Paul agreed. But there's more to it. Have you ever noticed how Latari traders always seem to get better deals from other insectoid species? Kira thought, for a moment. I hadn't considered that specifically. Paul opened a drawer and removed a small container. This is why. Scent is as important as words to them. Other insectoid species understand this naturally. Humans usually miss it entirely. He opened the container, revealing a purple powder. Synthesized from earth lavender, the molecular structure resembles a comfort pheromone from their homeworld. It reminds them of their breeding grounds. Kira was surprised. This isn't in any xenology textbook I've studied. Most human traders don't bother learning these details, Paul said. They rely on standard translation matrices and wonder why they never get the best deals. He closed the container. Tomorrow I'll use this during our meeting. Your job is to watch how they respond and adjust your translation accordingly. When they arrived at Vega Outpost the next day, Kira got her first view of the trading hub. Unlike the gleaming Nexus Station, Vega was old and patched together with sections built by different alien species over centuries. It orbited a small planetoid rich in minerals but with no atmosphere. Paul, Kira, and Zoe prepared to meet the Latari traders, while Linda and Sam stayed aboard to monitor the ship. Kira wore her best outfit, a dark blue jumpsuit that was formal, without being stiff. Paul carried the lavender container in his pocket. The meeting took place in a neutral trading area designed to accommodate multiple species. The Latari representatives arrived precisely on time. 3 tall insectoid beings with iridescent exoskeletons and complex mouthparts that clicked rapidly as they greeted the humans. Kira began translating immediately, catching the subtle variations in their clicking speech that indicated their rank and authority. The lead trader was addressing Paul directly, while the other 2 were evaluating Zoe and the security arrangements. Paul stepped forward and spoke while Kira translated. Honored. Traders, we bring greetings and hope for profitable exchanges. As he spoke, he discreetly opened the lavender container, allowing the scent to drift toward the Latari. The effect was immediate but subtle. The Latari's antennae quivered slightly, and their posture relaxed. The lead trader's clicking speech pattern changed, becoming less formal and more conversational. Kira adjusted her translation accordingly. Instead of the stiff, formal phrasing she had prepared, she shifted to a warmer, more familiar tone. The Latari responded positively, their movements becoming more animated and engaged. The negotiations progressed faster than Kira had expected. The Latari offered their mineral catalysts, rare compounds used in advanced engine systems, at prices well below the standard market rates. In exchange, they requested Earth agricultural products that were inexpensive for humans to provide, but valuable to the Latari. Throughout the meeting, Kira found herself not just translating words, but helping bridge cultural contexts. When a Latari trader made a joke about human shipping containers resembling egg chambers, Kira explained the humor to Paul, rather than just translating literally. This earned appreciative clicks from the Latari, who were unused to humans understanding their cultural references. By the end of the meeting, they had secured a deal that would bring the solar nomad a significant profit. The Latari even invited them to return for future trading, a rare honor for human merchants. As they walked back to the ship, Kira couldn't contain her curiosity. "That was amazing," she said to Paul. "The lavender trick. How did you discover that?" Paul smiled. "By paying attention. Years ago, I noticed a pattern. The Latari always made better deals after visiting their relaxation chambers where they keep certain plants. I had the scent analyzed and found a similar compound in earth lavender. Simple observation, nothing more. But it's brilliant," Kira insisted. "You understood something fundamental about them that most humans miss." "That's our real trade," Paul said. "Not just goods, but understanding. Most species in the galaxy view differences as barriers. We see them as opportunities." Back aboard the Solar Nomad, they celebrated their successful trade. As Linda and Sam secured the valuable cargo, Kira realized this was just the beginning. The galaxy was vast, filled with species who thought humans were too unpredictable to work with. But perhaps that unpredictability, that uniquely human ability to adapt and connect, was exactly what the galaxy needed. For the first time since leaving Earth, Kira felt she had found her place among the stars. Over the next 3 months, Kira traveled with the Solar Nomad to a dozen different trading posts and alien outposts. Each stop brought new challenges and new species to communicate with. With each successful trade, Kira's confidence grew. She began to notice patterns in how Paul worked. Before each meeting with alien traders, he researched not just their business practices but their biology, social customs, and even their history. He prepared small adjustments to the ship's environment for each visitor, changes in gravity settings, lighting and atmosphere that made aliens feel more comfortable. At an outpost near the Dravidi homeworld, Kira watched as Paul approached the clan leaders in precisely the correct order, avoiding offense that would have doomed their negotiations before they began. With the Thoraxians, he sat in complete silence for nearly 2 hours, comfortable in a stillness that would have made most humans nervous and fidgety. "How do you know all these things?" Kira asked him one evening as they prepared for upcoming negotiations with the notoriously difficult Kildari Consortium. "None of this is in standard diplomatic guidebooks." Paul looked up from the star charts. He was studying. "I watch and learn. Most humans try to make aliens adapt to our ways. I do the opposite." He paused. "Think about it like language. You don't just translate words, you understand context. I do the same with everything else." Kira began applying this approach to her work. Instead of just translating language, she started translating experiences. When Meridian traders came aboard, she noticed they seemed uncomfortable with the human habit of direct eye contact. She subtly adjusted her gaze, looking slightly to the side when speaking. The Meridians immediately became more relaxed. The Solar Nomad traveled further from human space than Kira had ever been. They visited trading hubs where humans were rare, where aliens stared at them with compound eyes or sensory tentacles. Some were openly hostile, believing humans too primitive or unstable for important business. It was at one such outpost that Kira made an important discovery. The crew was negotiating with a group of Vesperiacs, crystalline beings who communicated through light pulses that human eyes could barely detect. The negotiations were going poorly despite Kira's careful translations. During a break, Kira noticed something strange about the trading room. The light fixtures were standard across the station, but in this particular room, they pulsed at a frequency almost too subtle to notice. "Captain," she said quietly to Paul, "I think the room lighting is sending messages we can't understand. It might be saying something offensive or contradicting our offers." Paul trusted her judgment immediately. He requested a different meeting location, citing human visual sensitivity. When they resumed in a new room with steady lighting, the negotiations improved dramatically. After securing a successful trade, Paul took Kira aside. "That was excellent work. Most translators focus only on spoken language. You saw beyond that." Kira felt a surge of pride. "I'm learning to think like you do, not just about words, but about everything that communicates." That evening, as the crew shared a meal in the common area, Kira realized something important about the Solar Nomad itself. The ship wasn't just a trading vessel, it was a physical embodiment of Paul's philosophy. "This ship is a bridge between worlds," she said suddenly, interrupting a story Sam was telling about navigating a difficult asteroid field. The others looked at her curiously. "I mean, look at how it's designed," Kira continued. "The cargo bay can be reconfigured for different gravity preferences. The lighting systems shift to wavelengths comfortable for photosensitive visitors. Even the air composition can be adjusted in sealed sections." Paul nodded, his expression serious. "You've got it. Most human ships are built exclusively for human comfort. We've sacrificed some of that to create a vessel that can truly welcome others." Linda chimed in. "It wasn't easy to design. Most engineers thought I was crazy to make systems so flexible." "So why do it?" Kira asked. "Most humans have been trying to prove themselves to aliens by becoming more like them, suppressing emotions, adopting their hierarchies, trying to be less human. And that's exactly the wrong approach," Paul said. "For 200 years, humans have been trying to fit themselves into alien expectations. It never works because we're not aliens, we're humans, and that's our strength, not our weakness." Zoe, who rarely spoke about philosophical matters, added, "Adaptability. That's what humans do better than any species we've met. We don't need rigid environments or exact conditions to thrive. We adjust." Kira thought about this deeply. All her life she had been trying to fit herself into alien expectations, smoothing her edges to become acceptable. Paul's approach was fundamentally different. Embrace human nature while building accommodations for others. The next day, they docked at a major trading hub controlled by the Meridian Alliance. A diplomatic incident between the Thoraxians and Meridians had disrupted regular trade routes throughout the sector. Large alien shipping corporations were stranded, unwilling to risk passage through contested space. As they watched news reports about the situation in the ship's common area, Paul suddenly smiled. "This is an opportunity for us." "An opportunity?" Sam asked. "Half the trade routes are closed or restricted." "Exactly," Paul said. "The big operations can't move. They're too visible, too bound by corporate protocols. But we're small, we can slip through the cracks." He turned to Kira. "How comfortable are you with Thoraxian formal apology structures?" Kira thought for a moment. "I know the basics, but it's complex. Their apologies require specific tonal patterns that human vocal cords struggle with." "Can you learn more?" Paul asked. "Quickly?" "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Give me access to the cultural databases and I can master the essentials by tomorrow." Paul nodded, satisfied. "Good. Because we're going to do something no one else is trying. We're going to carry messages between the Thoraxians and Meridians, unofficial, communications that neither side will officially acknowledge but both desperately need." The plan was daring. While major alien corporations waited for formal diplomatic channels to resolve the crisis, the Solar Nomad would become a back-channel courier, helping both sides save face while finding a path to resolution. It was a role only a human ship could fill. Alien vessels were too closely identified with their species or corporate affiliations. But humans were seen as outsiders to all, not fully trusted perhaps, but also not aligned with any particular faction. As Kira prepared by studying Thoraxian formal language structures late into the night, she realized how much she had changed in just 3 months. She was no longer trying to hide her humanity to please alien employers. Instead, she was using uniquely human abilities to build connections that rigid alien structures couldn't manage. For the first time, she saw her species' emotional range and adaptability, not as flaws to overcome but as powerful tools no other species fully possessed. The mission to help resolve the Thoraxian Meridian dispute was unlike anything Kira had experienced before. The solar nomad became a shuttle between two proud alien civilizations, neither willing to speak directly to the other, but both needing a solution. First, they visited the Thoraxian outpost at the edge of the contested space. Thoraxians were tall, silent beings with hard outer shells and complex social hierarchies. They communicated through subtle movements and precisely timed silences as much as through their deep, rumbling speech. Kira had studied their formal apology structures intensively. When they met with the Thoraxian representatives, she helped Paul navigate the delicate balance between respect and strength that Thoraxians demanded. "We offer ourselves as message carriers," Paul said, with Kira translating both his words and suggesting small adjustments to his posture. Not as representatives of either side, but as neutral parties concerned with restoring trade. The Thoraxian leader, a massive being with a shell marked by intricate patterns indicating high rank, considered them silently for what felt like hours, but was actually only 10 minutes. Kira maintained a perfect stillness that impressed even the Thoraxians. Finally, the leader spoke. The vibrations of his voice felt as much as heard. "The Meridians claim we violated their transport rights. This is incorrect. But we cannot explain our position without losing honor." It was a start. The Thoraxian gave them a message to deliver that contained their position but was worded in a way that maintained their dignity. The message included subtle linguistic markers that only a skilled translator would recognize, markers indicating a willingness to compromise if approached correctly. Next, they traveled to the Meridian trading station. Meridians were collective beings, each individual made up of hundreds of small organisms working together in transparent sacs of fluid. They communicated through color changes and rippling movements across their surface. Here, Paul relied heavily on Kira's skills. She translated not just the Thoraxian message but its underlying intent, explaining the cultural context to the Meridian representatives. "The Thoraxians cannot apologize directly," she explained, "but their message contains formal recognition, patterns that, in their culture, acknowledge that a miscommunication occurred." The Meridian collective pulsed with blues and greens, colors of consideration. "This is acceptable as a beginning," they responded finally. "We will provide guidance for a mutual disengagement from the contested routes." Back and forth, the solar nomad traveled, carrying messages, clarifying intentions, and slowly building a framework for resolution. What would have taken months through official diplomatic channels took weeks through their informal mediation. Word spread about the small human ship navigating the diplomatic crisis. Other traders began to take notice. Some alien merchants who needed to move goods despite the disrupted routes approached the solar nomad for help. Soon they were not just carrying messages, but also helping coordinate small trading convoys through safe corridors they had negotiated access to. The solar nomad became the center of an impromptu network, connecting isolated outposts and facilitating essential exchanges that the large trading entities couldn't manage. Other human ships joined their informal alliance. Vessels that had previously struggled to find profitable routes now found themselves valued for the same qualities that alien corporations had dismissed: their adaptability, their willingness to improvise, and their ability to communicate across different cultures. Paul gathered the crew one evening after a particularly successful negotiation had opened a new trade corridor. "What we're doing here is bigger than just our ship," he said. "We're creating a new model for human integration into galactic society." Kira understood what he meant, not by becoming like aliens, but by being the best versions of ourselves. "Exactly," Paul nodded. For too long, humans have been trying to prove we belong by denying what makes us human. Our emotions, our unpredictability, our creativity, these aren't weaknesses. They're strengths that no other species fully possesses. 4 months after the crisis began, representatives from both the Thoraxian Collective and the Meridian Alliance requested a joint meeting aboard the Solar Nomad. It was unprecedented. Neither group would normally agree to meet on a vessel as small and technologically simple as a human trading ship. Kira worked with Linda to prepare the ship's common area, adjusting the environment to balance the needs of both species. Gravity was set slightly higher than human standard to please the Thoraxians. Lighting was modulated to include the ultraviolet spectrum that Meridians used for subtle communication. When the representatives arrived, Paul welcomed them with formal greetings in both languages. Kira stood nearby, ready to translate, but found herself speaking less than expected. Over the weeks of shuttle diplomacy, both sides had grown more accustomed to human communication styles. The meeting resulted in a formal agreement to resolve the dispute and reopen all trade routes, but more importantly, it established a precedent. The representatives acknowledged the unique role the humans had played. Your species sees connections where others see only differences, the Thoraxian leader rumbled. This is valuable. The Meridian Collective pulsed with colors that Kira recognized as respect, a rare display toward humans. Your adaptability creates possibilities that rigid systems cannot envision. As news of the successful resolution spread, the Solar Nomad received invitations to trading hubs that had previously been closed to human vessels. Alien merchants specifically requested human negotiators for complex deals. Within weeks, their success had begun to change perceptions of humans throughout the sector. 6 months after joining the Solar Nomad, Kira found herself preparing for something she never expected, representing their growing network at a sector-wide commerce summit. She would be the first human ever invited to participate in such proceedings. As she reviewed her notes in her quarters the night before the summit, Paul knocked on her door. "Nervous?" he asked. "A little," Kira admitted. "A year ago, I couldn't even get aliens to hire me as a basic translator. Tomorrow I'm speaking to representatives from 26 species about creating new trade frameworks." Paul smiled. "You know why you're the right person for this, don't you?" Kira thought about everything she had learned. "Because I understand both sides. I respect alien cultures while embracing human strengths." "More than that," Paul said, "because you never gave up. Even when facing rejection, you kept learning, kept trying to build bridges." He handed her a small package. "A gift for tomorrow." Inside was a translator pin, more advanced than any Kira had seen before. It could handle simultaneous translation for up to 12 languages at once. Engraved on its surface were words in human standard. "Differences are opportunities." The next day, as Kira addressed the gathering of alien representatives, she felt a new confidence. She spoke of the human network they had built, explaining how their adaptable approach had maintained vital supply lines during the crisis. She proposed formal recognition for their trading coalition within galactic commerce structures. As her words were translated into dozens of alien languages, she caught Paul's eye in the audience. He gave her a small nod, and in that moment, Kira understood what he had been building all along. It wasn't just a trading network, but a new path for humanity among the stars. Not by denying their nature, but by embracing it. The applause that followed her speech included the clicking mandibles, rumbling vibrations, and pulsing lights of a dozen alien species, not because she had become like them, but because she had finally truly been herself.